On the night of February 22nd, 2025, the Starlight Inn parking lot in Memphis was quiet. It was dark, and only a few lights shined over the rows of parked cars. Inside one of those cars sat 29-year-old Terrica Tabor. She was in the front passenger seat. Her boyfriend was beside her, and her sister was in the back. They were sitting together, not moving. The car wasn't running. It looked like they were either waiting or just taking a break. Everything seemed calm, but someone else was already nearby, and she wasn't just passing by. She was walking with purpose. A woman wearing a dark hoodie approached the car from the side. Her hood was pulled up, and her face was partly hidden. As she stepped closer to the passenger side, she raised her voice and said loudly, "I told you," without any warning or delay. She pulled out a gun and fired 3 shots straight into the car. The bullets hit Terrica, and she collapsed where she sat. Her sister and boyfriend didn't even have time to react before the woman turned around and ran off. She disappeared quickly into the night, leaving behind silence, panic, and a car filled with shock. Police arrived within minutes. They blocked off the area with yellow tape and began collecting evidence. Officers spoke to the 2 witnesses in the car and asked for every detail about the shooter. Emergency medical teams checked Terrica, but there was nothing they could do. Cameras from the motel recorded parts of what happened. Investigators began to look at the footage frame by frame. They searched the woman's face, the direction she ran, and what kind of gun she used. Small metal casings were found near the car door, and police marked them with numbers on the ground. By morning, the parking lot was clear, but the questions had just begun. The motel guests woke up to find out that a young mother had been killed just feet away from their rooms. The case was now open, and officers had one goal: find the person in the hoodie who pulled the trigger and ran. Before we dive in, don't forget to hit that subscribe button. Drop a comment below. Where are you tuning in from? What are your thoughts as this story unfolds? Your voice matters. These are real people, real tragedies, and real lessons we can't ignore. Share this video with someone you care about. It could make all the difference. Welcome to Unseen Crime Dossiers, your home for spine-chilling cases, haunting before mysteries, and deep dives into the world of crime. From jaw-dropping real-life events to groundbreaking forensic discoveries, we're here to uncover the truth behind the most gripping investigations. Step inside, examine the evidence, and lose yourself in the shadows of true crime. After the crime scene was cleared, police officers started the process of putting the case together. They took the car Terrica was sitting in and had it towed for a closer check. They also collected the clothes Terrica was wearing as evidence and sent everything to the lab for testing. Investigators reviewed the motel's camera footage. In one clip, a person in a hoodie could be seen walking toward the vehicle before the shooting. The image was not clear, but it gave police a time frame and direction the shooter came from. They began canvassing nearby businesses to find more video that might show the suspect's face. Officers knocked on doors around the motel and asked people they heard or saw anything. Some motel guests were asleep, but few reported hearing gunshots followed by a woman running. One person gave a description that matched the woman in the dark hoodie. Phone records were also pulled from Terrica's call history. Police checked for recent calls and messages to see who she had spoken to in the hours before her death. Some names stood out, and detectives started calling those people for interviews. They were careful with the timeline and tracked every move Terrica made that day. Later that week, officers found social media posts connected to the case. One of them appeared to have threatening language. The post had been shared just days before the shooting and had comments that sounded personal. Detectives saved those posts and used them to learn more about the person behind them. A lineup was created using photos of possible suspects. Terrica's sister and boyfriend were called in to look at the pictures. Both pointed to the same face. That image belonged to a woman named Jenny Bradley. She became the main suspect from that moment forward. With new evidence in hand, the police prepared an arrest warrant. They added Jenny Bradley's name to the system and began searching for her location. The investigation had moved from a mystery to a manhunt, and they were getting closer to the person they believed pulled the trigger. Weeks after the shooting, the case had grown stronger. The photo picked out by witnesses matched someone already known to the police. Her name was Jenna Bradley, a 32-year-old woman with a past that included run-ins with the law. Detectives believed she was the same woman seen on the motel camera the night Terrica was killed. The authorities searched multiple locations across Memphis, hoping to catch her quickly. They also asked for help from other agencies in case she left town. Her name was added to a local and national wanted list, and patrol officers were given her photo to watch out for. In early July 2025, the U.S. Marshals joined the case. They had more tools and wider reach. Within days, they tracked her down in another state. She was found hiding at a home far from Memphis. Officers surrounded the place and waited for the right moment to move in. Jenna Bradley was taken into custody without a fight. She did not speak much during the arrest and gave no details about the crime. Officers handcuffed her and brought her back to Memphis, where she was placed in jail. Her arrest was recorded in official reports and confirmed by the police department. She was charged with first-degree murder, which means the police believed she planned the killing. A court date was set, and she was assigned a lawyer. The bond for her release was set at $90,000, but there was no record of her paying it right away. The case moved from the streets into the courtroom. Prosecutors began preparing their files, and defense lawyers started looking into their side. Each side had access to the camera footage, the social media posts, the witness statements, and the evidence collected at the scene. With Jenna now behind bars, the investigation reached a turning point. The suspect was in custody, and the legal system would now decide what came next. The police had done their job. Now, it was time for the court to do its part. Once Jenna Bradley was arrested, her case was moved to the Shelby County court system. She stood before a judge for the first time only days after arriving back in Memphis. The courtroom was quiet as her charges were read out loud. The main charge was first-degree murder, along with use of a firearm during a felony. She did not speak much during the hearing. Her lawyer stood beside her and answered most of the questions. The judge reviewed the case details and confirmed her bond at $90,000. She was told to return for her next court date and was taken back to jail afterward. Prosecutors began collecting every piece of evidence for trial. They reviewed the camera video from the motel, the witness statements, and the online messages that had surfaced before the shooting. They believed these items would clearly link her to the killing of Terrica Tabor. Her defense team worked quietly in the background. They requested more time to study the evidence. They also looked at Terrica's background and any connection between her and Jenna. Their goal was to find anything that could raise doubt in court or explain why the shooting happened. Several pretrial meetings were held behind closed doors. These meetings gave both sides a chance to share updates, request documents, and prepare for trial. The judge made sure all rules were being followed and that both sides had access to the same materials. In the courtroom, the faces of family members were often seen. Some of Terrica's relatives attended every hearing. They sat in silence as lawyers and the judge discussed the case. There were no loud moments, just steady progress through the legal system. With the next court date approaching, more paperwork was filed. Motions were submitted. Witnesses were listed. The trial was not starting yet, but everything was moving in that direction. What happened at the motel would soon be examined piece by piece inside the courtroom. After Terrica Tabor's death, her home became very quiet. Her 3 children no longer heard their mother's voice in the mornings. They still had their clothes, toys, and favorite meals, but the person who gave them hugs and kisses each day was no longer there. Family members stepped in to help. Her sister took on more responsibilities and began caring for kids. Other relatives offered support, making sure the children stayed in school and had what they needed. It was not easy, but they worked together to keep things going. Photos of Terrica were placed in frames around the house. Her oldest child often looked at one picture in the living room and sat quietly beside it. Her youngest didn't fully understand what happened, but noticed that routines had changed. Meals felt different, and bedtime was not the same. Friends from the community came by with food and supplies. Some dropped off letters or cards with kind words. A local group helped the family find counseling services for the children. These services gave them someone to talk to, someone who could listen as they tried to understand what happened. At the motel where the shooting took place, People left flowers on the ground near the spot where the car had been parked. A few candles were lit in memory of Terrica. Her name was written on a small board next to a photo and a message that said she would be remembered. The children sometimes asked where their mother had gone. The adults answered carefully, using words they could understand. They spoke gently and reminded them that they were loved and would be protected. It was not the same, but it was the best they could offer in the middle of the loss. Each day brought small changes. The family slowly adjusted to a new way of living. The court case continued in the background, but for Terrica's children, the focus remained on healing. Life had been changed forever, and the process of rebuilding had only just begun. As the court process moved forward, some parts of the case remained unclear. Investigators had gathered video footage, witness statements, and digital messages, but they still had no solid explanation for the motive behind the shooting. The reason for the attack was still not made public. Terrica Tabor and Jenna Bradley were believed to have known each other before the incident. Police did not confirm how close they were or what caused tension between them. Any history they shared remained sealed in court files and confidential reports. Some documents mentioned a possible disagreement in the days leading up to the shooting. There were also signs that online activity had played a role in the case. Screenshots from social media showed messages that appeared to involve both women, though the details stayed under review. Witnesses close to Terrica were interviewed more than once. They shared timelines and described events that may have led up to that night at the motel. Their words helped form the picture of what might have been building behind the scenes. Jenna's legal team did not release a full statement. They filed certain motions and asked the court to keep parts of the case private. No public interviews were given, and no new updates about the relationship between the suspect and the victim were offered. As hearings continued, pieces of the puzzle were still missing. The final answers about why the shooting happened had not been shared in court. Those who followed the case waited to see what more the trial might reveal when all facts were presented. The case remained active, and Terrica's name stayed in the minds of those affected. Though a suspect had been arrested and charged, full clarity on the events that led to her death had not yet come to light. The file remained open, and the final outcome was still ahead. Months passed, and the trial date grew closer. Both sides had prepared their arguments and organized their evidence. The court had received all necessary documents. The judge reviewed the final schedule, and the trial was confirmed to move ahead as planned. Jenna Bradley remained in custody. Her legal team continued to meet with her behind closed doors. They reviewed every detail of the shooting, the witness accounts, and what might be said in court. She waited quietly for her day in front of the jury. The prosecutor's office listed key witnesses. Detectives, medical professionals, and civilians were expected to testify. The focus of the trial would be the events that took place in the motel parking lot. Physical evidence, digital messages, and surveillance footage would be used to support the charges. Outside the courtroom, Terrica's family made plans to attend the proceedings. Some had already taken time off work. They wanted to be present each day, sitting together in the front row. It was important for them to see the case through from beginning to end. Court security was increased due to the nature of the crime. The courthouse posted public notices about the upcoming trial. Reporters prepared to cover the case. It had drawn attention from both local news outlets and online viewers who had followed it since the first headline appeared. As the final week before trial arrived, the legal team submitted their last motions. Jury selection began soon after. A panel of citizens was chosen to listen to the facts and deliver a decision. The courtroom was ready. The next step would decide guilt or innocence. The file on Terrica Tabor's case was almost complete. What happened in the courtroom would close the final chapter. It would not bring her back, but it would bring the law to a conclusion. The facts, the stories, and the outcome would all be placed on record. The courtroom was full on the first day of the trial. The judge entered, and everyone stood. After weeks of delays and preparation, the trial officially began. Each person in the room had a different reason for being there, but all eyes were focused on the same case. The prosecutor presented the timeline, showing what happened step by step. They brought in police officers who explained how they found the vehicle and what they saw inside. Medical reports and photographs were shown to the jury as proof of what had taken place. Witnesses gave their accounts clearly. A motel worker spoke about hearing loud sounds at night. A neighbor near the location shared what they remembered seeing. Each person added new information to the chain of events that led to Terrica's death. Jenne's defense team argued she acted without planning. They asked the jury to consider her state of mind. They said the situation unfolded quickly and that it was not something she had expected to happen. They used their time to offer a different view of the same events. After closing arguments, the judge gave final instructions to the jury. They went into a private room to talk about everything they had seen and heard. Hours passed before the decision was made. When the jury returned, the room went silent as the verdict was read. The jury found Jenne Bradley guilty. She was sentenced to prison for her actions. The judge gave a statement explaining that the law had spoken and that consequences had been handed down. The sentence marked the official end of the case. As the courtroom emptied, Terrica's family remained seated for a few extra moments. The trial had ended, but the impact of what happened would stay with them. The court had finished its work, and the file was closed. The next chapter of life would begin without her. After the trial ended, life slowly returned to normal for some, but not for everyone. The people who knew Terrica best still carried memories of her every day. Her name stayed in conversations. Her photos remained in homes, and her presence was still felt in quiet ways. Community groups gathered to talk about what had happened. They spoke about safety, awareness, and the power of decision-making. Local leaders wanted to use the tragedy as a chance to teach and protect others. They believed lessons could be learned from what had taken place. A memorial was placed near the motel where Terrica lost her life. Flowers, candles, and posters were set up by friends and family. Some wrote notes and left them by the wall, sharing kind words and personal thoughts. The area became a place of reflection. At her former school, a small bench was donated in her name. Students and staff members remembered her as someone who was full of energy. The bench was placed under a tree where people could sit and think. It was made to remind others of peace and care. Terrica's family decided to start a foundation in her honor. The goal was to help young women stay safe and build strong futures. They shared her story in schools and public events. They did not want her memory to fade with time. The news moved on to other stories, but those close to the case still followed the updates. Appeals, prison reports, and court notices were released slowly. Everything was documented and added to public records. The case remained an example in the legal system. Though her life was cut short, Terrica Tabor's name continued to live through action, remembrance, and change. Her story became more than a headline. It became a reminder of how choices, both small and big, can shape lives forever. Here at Unseen Crime Dossiers, we're driven by a mission to uncover hidden realities, honor forgotten voices, and keep their memories alive. If this story made you pause, reflect, or feel something, there's more coming that will challenge you even deeper. Make sure to hit subscribe, tap the like button, and turn on that notification bell so you never miss a case. We're dropping new episodes regularly, and trust us, what's ahead is even more chilling. Before you go, we want to hear from you. What moment hit you the hardest? Drop it in the comments. Your perspective matters, and your voice helps keep these stories alive. Until next time, stay alert, stay informed, and never stop seeking the truth, because every life deserves to be heard.